This is Beyond the Capes.
All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Cape podcast. With us today is Michael Oden of Nine Realms Publishing. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Ryan. How are you doing this evening?
I'm good. I'm glad you're here. I think you're doing well. As we had a little talk beforehand. We're happy to have you.
Yeah, man. Hey, I am happy to be here. It's tough in these mean streets in the indie world, so it's really good to actually be on a new platform and talk to new people. It's always a pleasure.
Absolutely, we can't wait to get into your work later on. We like to always start every podcast off with the one question. It always gets everyone. Of all the things you could do, comic books is probably one of the most rewarding fields, especially as we talked about when you get that final product of your story in hand and seeing every little piece, every sweat and tear go into this. It's such a rewarding thing to have. Comic books, on the flip side, is also one of the most heartbreaking and gut-wrenching fields you could possibly stick out, and then some. That barely even covers it. Of all the things you could have done, and there's so many different fields now, so many things to do, different jobs. Why this industry? Why keep up this passion and keep putting these books out?
Well, naturally, Ryan, the obvious answer is I'm a sadist and I hate myself. But no, I
most,
like in all
seriousness, people would agree.
It's like, so in all seriousness, it is very hard, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend that there aren't times where I have felt completely overwhelmed and
for sure,
like I was in free fall, right? Like absolutely, there are moments like that, but there is something special. It goes beyond just getting, the physical copy of your book in hand. Like, and yes, that is an absolutely surreal feeling. That really helps kind of stoke that fire and keep it alive. But I think more than anything, it's for me, because I am a writer, it's finding a way for me to tell a story that connects with with somebody out there, and hearing about how it connects with them, hearing how important the story is to them. Like, and I think that that's really what it is to me, is that, storytelling is this age-old tradition that goes back all the way to antiquities. There's never been a period of time where you've had a group of people sitting around a campfire and someone's telling a story and a passerby won't at least stop to listen, even if it's just for a couple of seconds. There's a beauty in that stories are this universal, like this universal thing. Like there isn't a single culture out there that doesn't have their own stories, their own heroes, their own myths to draw from. They are a universal connector. They are the grand unifier of everything. If there's one thing we can all relate to, it's that we all have stories that we hold dear, culturally, subconsciously, personally. And so I think that that's really the core of it. Is comics allows me a way to tell stories that can contribute to that bridge of the gap, right? Like,
absolutely, yeah.
And I think that's where you have, and that's where it's separated from things like not like just writing a standard novel, which is like a fantastic, like really hard work. No, and like it's amazing to see people do. But I think that one of these things that comics does provide is you have this blend of the visual and the storytelling aspect. And so it's able to enrich and capture people's imagination. And it's still forces them to use that imagination too, because like, you know, it's not like a movie or a video game. It's not like the action's playing out in real time. You are still using, like, there's still that kind of tether to the actual imagination. Like, yeah, you see the images on the page, but you have to bring movement to them. You have to bring the voice to your ears for each of the characters. Like, it's this kind of perfect middle ground of everything. And I love it so much.
Absolutely. No, I think storytelling is huge. I think if you look at every culture, we have our heroes, our myths, our legends. I mean, that's where, if you really want to dive into most characters, we have the storytelling tropes and, you know, what they mean, and kind of that basis for pretty much any story or any literature that we have. Storytelling will always be big for all of us across the board. Now, with that passion for writing, I'm assuming that growing up and even into adulthood, that writing was always kind of like the path that just felt the most right to you, going forward.
So, funnily enough, you know, growing up, I was actually more of the, like, people thought I was going to be the artist. Like, yeah, I came up with stories. I was always very creative and everything like that, but I drew a lot. And I'm okay, but by no stretch of the imagination close to like a pro or anything like that. Like, I can't imagine somebody paying more than like $20 or $30 for one of my sketches. Like, I wouldn't be comfortable accepting anything more than that, to be frank. And I'm certainly not going to be doing sequential art anytime soon, because that is a whole other skill set, and I can't even. But writing, I think that the big thing for me has always been, I've loved stories, and I've always come up with these things in my head. And I would say probably around high school was when I really started to dive into writing. I had a creative I had an AP literature teacher. He was also my just standard English teacher in my junior year. But like, when I was doing AP lit, with him, this guy Tony Herman, really got me into and invested me into writing stories. Really liked doing the short writing prompts and everything like that. Loved his class. But and then as I got older and everything like that, writing just became something more and more I got focused on. And when I deployed in 2016, I was actually, there was an industry blog called Movie Pilot way back in the day, and they handled everything from comic book news to comic book movie news to this, that, the other. And their whole policy was all you had to do was create an account, and you could create content from Movie Pilot. But then on the flip side of that is they would keep looking at people's work, and occasionally they'd find people that they liked, and they would put them through a verified creator program, and then those guys would be paid content writers. And so I was deployed in 2016, and I was just writing bullshit reviews at the time. And I wrote a review for Superman Rebirth issue 2 called An Ode to Fatherhood. And Movie Pilot found it. They touched it up a bit, and then they reposted it to their main page. It's really funny because when they did this, they had like changed my title and like tweaked some of it. So initially I thought that, I was like, man, these motherfuckers stole my thunder. Like, I was just like,
They stole my article.
I was like, man, somebody else did a review of Superman Rebirth issue 2, and it was all about how it was this celebration of fatherhood. Man, what jerks. I totally wrote that myself. And then, like, sure enough, I logged into my Movie Pilot thing. And it was like, your page has had over 10,000 reads in the past 2-3 days. And I was like, what? And then I went into my article, and I was like, oh shit. It was my article. And sure enough, I had a thing in my inbox that was like, hey, we'd like to have you be a part of our verified creator program. Here's how you apply. And so I went through, and I became a no bullshit industry journalist for Movie Pilot. And I carried that over for a few things. I'd started my own blog at one point. It didn't really take off. I worked for Heroic Hollywood for about 3 weeks, and that was miserable. So I left. And then tried to start another blog that did not take off. And then I started writing for Up Your Geek for a bit, and that was fun. But throughout all this time, I'd be doing these op-eds and these reviews and this, that, the other. And like every now and again, I'd get comments like, why don't you write your own stories? Like you're sitting here breaking down why these things don't work in these major comics or films and talking about how you would fix them. Why don't you make your own? And I was like, well, that's not how the industry works. Like, that's, you can't just walk in. Marvel and DC don't take unsolicited pitches, and then like
not anymore.
Yeah. Oh man, that's a whole other thing. Marvel and DC have been in like Marvel and DC in particular have had so much stale creativity outside of a few specific exceptions for the past like 10 or 15 years. And at least, and frankly, probably going back even farther than that. And one of the biggest contributors is they stopped listening. They stopped trying to listen. Because I remember when I grew up, there were annual submission contests, not just for artists, but for writers. Annual submissions where you would pitch your story ideas and everything like that direct to Marvel, DC. You'd write them in, and then they would use this to bring new people into the industry. This is actively how we got people like Jeff Johns.
Yep.
And they stopped doing it. And I'm sure that there's probably a legal reason for that. Someone got unhappy that they didn't win a contest, and then there was a storyline that kind of resembled the pitch they sent in, and they probably threw a temper tantrum, and I understand that. But by shutting your doors to the people who love the stories you're telling, you are denying yourself the opportunity to continue that tradition in an authentic way. But that's a whole other thing. But like, point was, going back to what I was saying, people were telling me that I should do my own things. And so it was around that point in time, I started to kind of mess with my first draft with the original Elysian Fields issue 0. And so in 2020, there was the crowdfunding boom in indie. The mainstream industry went pencils down. People were getting stimulus checks from the early days of the pandemic. So disposable income, no competition. So indie comics started making a lot of money in crowdfunding. And so it was around this time I launched my first campaign. It was very successful. I thought that I was king of the world and was not judging it as a lightning in the bottle moment. So immediately went into my second book and got my teeth kicked in. Hence the conversations you brought up earlier, where like it can be painful, grueling, heartbreaking. Is the first time I almost quit. And it is probably the closest time I almost quit.
For sure.
And yeah. The second book.
I mean, it's one of the.
Oh, go ahead.
No, it's one of those things that it's funny because a lot of people will be in comic books. They're like, oh, when you get that first heartbreak, it's like when it's almost like a relationship. Like you got to go to the gym and then just get back onto it, because if you do not get past that first heartbreak, it's gonna just destroy you. You have to build yourself up stronger and come back and realize that this is part of the process and keep going.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that was just go darker, because then the thing that really saved me in comics was I came up with an idea for a superhero. I was going through some pretty rough stuff at the time. And So I came up with this idea of, a father-son superhero team. But I wanted to do it different.
Okay.
I wanted it to be a story about justice. I wanted it to be a story about grief and loss. And I wanted it to kind of be my love letter to things like The Crow and Todd McFarlane's Haunt and all this other stuff. And so I wanted this to be a whole story about a father and son where one of them was dead and the suit like acted effectively like a super suit. But whenever you have something like that, it's always the father's dead. His ghost is coming back to guide the son because, that's the standard definition of it. But I wanted to flip that. And so I created this character called the Embrace, where you have this guy, Clarence, just an average day guy, and his 8-year-old kid got murdered. And he felt incredibly lost. And after being told that the police were no longer going to be investigating it because they had no other leads, he tries to take his own life. When he's stopped by the ghost of his son, they come together, they embrace, and he gets a vision of what happened that night. He sees the people that were responsible. And when he comes to, he's in the super suit powered by his son's ghost. And together they're bringing his child's killers to justice. And it's a very important thing that's focused on this book is justice, not vengeance. They're not going out there to kill these guys. This is an 8-year-old child who saw his dad in pain and wants to save him. And so together they get to be a superhero. And by giving him this experience, he is helping his dad process his death and his grief and move forward. Needless to say, that comic really hit people.
Exactly.
We raised quite a bit of money. We reached, I think, 12 countries internationally, and had almost 400 backers. It was an incredibly humbling experience, and it kept me in the game. And so I started writing more. I started doing more stories for more people. I started to expand my own portfolio. I got to do some collaborative efforts. I did a beautiful black and white book called Judex, where I had reimagined. I'd come up with the idea to reimagine this old silent film character that was now in the public domain, that a lot of people consider to be inspiration for Walter B. Gibson's The Shadow.
Okay.
And so I took this character and I reimagined him into this defender of Parisian culture during the occupation of the 40s. And I typed up like my first draft and everything like that, and I sent it to my good friends over at Global Frequency, and they were like, "This is fucking beautiful." And so we came together. Aaron Neff over there helped me really polish up the script. Wrote a whole bunch in there as well. We ended up being co-writers on it. He added a bunch of scenes, touched up dialogue. And I was there as well. Like we would have these like 2-3 hour longs creative jam sesh where we would just be in the document and editing and everything like that. Sometimes even editing the same dialogue at like the exact same time with the same edits. It was an experience. But like I got to learn a lot, and that's what eventually led me to rebooting Elysian Fields, which is what I'm doing right now. So I've got Elysian Fields Reborn, which, after having all these years of experience, I've always loved this concept. And if I was going to go, I had some people asking when I was going to do the next Elysian Fields book, and I didn't have an answer for them because I didn't think there was interest. But sure enough, I went and I looked, I had posted the original series up on Webtoon in its entirety of what I had done. And it had over 100 subscribers, over almost 5,000 reads with an average rating of 9.78 out of 10. So I was like, okay, well, people seem to fucking enjoy this.
Pretty well
I
liked.
should, I should probably do something with it. But by that point, you know, I had learned so much from my experiences, and my own personal standards of my projects had gone to a whole other level than when I had started. And so I was like, all right, well, if I'm going to do this, I want to do it right. I want to do it the way like I would do it now, and I want to start fresh.
Absolutely.
And so that's what I did, and the result is probably the best looking book of my career so far. So yeah, it's been quite the freaking process.
Oh, I can only imagine. I mean, the process is always long. I mean, it obviously all worked out. And a couple things you said, I always feel like I gotta either talk to our friend Tommy at World of War Comics. I really want a COVID comic documentary, because when we go to 2030, 2035, we're gonna look back, and I know COVID was not a fun thing. I'm not saying it was fun, but
It
the indie comic scene
inspired
really
so much
benefited
creativity.
greatly.
It inspired so much creativity, and I only wished that there was more of a organized effort to take that creativity, mentor it,
There we go.
sculpt it, and build something strong enough to actually compete at the mainstream level. Because I feel like there were so many good ideas. And I like it as an indie creator, like I've put my stuff out, but I've backed a lot of books. Like on Indiegogo, I have well over 200 contributions. Well over 200 of those. And then on Kickstarter, between my Elysian Fields account and my just standard Nine Realms publishing account, I have well over 100 of those too. So like I've actively sunk a lot of money into the indie comic scene, and I think that the saddest part about it is just how few of those things kept up, and
No, for sure.
how even fewer of them were the professional grade that they could have been with some mentorship, with someone coming in and being like, look, man, you've got a great idea here. Let's take what you have and turn it into a real fucking sword. Like you've got the beginnings of it. You've got the ore, you've got all the materials you need to make something here. Let me hone you into something. Let me hone this with you. And I think that's probably one of like the craziest things, is because it really could have been something. People were freaking spending money left and right. There was nothing to compete in the mainstream. If there was that organization, if there was that care to actually develop so many of these creators and their projects, what you could have had at the end as a result would have been a game changer.
No, for sure. Absolutely. And it's always crazy when you look at Kickstarter. And I think some of the projects that I have stopped at issue 0 and 1, and I look and I realize that we're never going to get at issue 2.
Yeah.
It's really heartbreaking to know that like some of these storylines really could go the distance, but either they had to return to work, money ran dry, which I understand. A lot of us understand that life does get in the way. But it is heartbreaking to know that sometimes it will just never go past issue 1. But I think what's amazing in your career and your time span is looking at that first issue that you put out, and now getting to do, which we're here to talk about, the Elysian Fields Reborn, and seeing just how much you've grown. Everyone's always proud of their first issue, as you should be. 90% of people are unable to put that first issue out. That's a big step for anyone when you're doing a comic book. But to go back and look at your first issue 10 years ago and see like you now have the cardstock page reformed, you've learned panel layout and whatnot, and seeing
Yeah.
just what you've learned put into it has to be a great feeling to see, like, wow, I put in the work and I've honed my craft, and this is the result.
It's so surreal, and I think that's a great way to put it, as well as like how you were describing it, was like you're looking back and forth. So like I planned this campaign out very intentionally. We launched the Kickstarter on to the day 5th anniversary of when I launched Elysian Fields issue 0. So one of the craziest fucking things about this experience has been having memories show up on my Facebook of when I was posting about the 0 issue. You're like, hey, do you want to make a post about then and now? And I'm like, you know what? I fucking do.
Kind of do.
I really want to show, because I'll be like, yeah, this pencil layout's not bad, but let me show you what we did in this by comparison. And it's been so fantastic. Like it's an invigorating thing. Like, we talked about earlier in the stream that elation that you get when you get your book in the mail and everything like that. Because it's one thing when you're putting it all together and you're seeing it digitally on the computer, but then you hold
Absolutely.
that physical book in your hand. And there is
the feeling of it,
I don't want to say that you start to lose the magic as more of your books come out, but it becomes one of those things where you're like, yeah, this feels good, but it's not.
Yeah.
It lessens, right? Like it never goes away, but it's like, yeah, this is great.
You get more used to it. Yeah.
But like, I got my proofs for Elysian Fields Reborn. I've got all 4 of the main covers here. When I got those into the mail, it was like getting the original books that I got from my very first campaign, from the Elysian Fields issue 0 again. I started to cry. Like I was on a live stream, and I'm literally like having to it's like, I need a second. I can't. Like it was such, and I think like it was such a powerful experience for me, because again, this is a series that I thought was done for. Like genuinely, I was like, yeah, all right, well, I gave it a shot. No one seems to give a shit about this, so like whatever. I'm just gonna focus on the other stuff that people care about, and that'll be like that's fine. Like I'm good with that. I kind of made my peace with it. So to come back to it and have it rise like a phoenix from the ashes, and to have the physical book in my hand and to see just how next level it is from the original book. It was a very cathartic moment. I would say, like it was the closest, maybe even better than when I opened that first book. That the box of my first
breathtaking feeling.
It was.
But you
can't
take that breath, because it just takes it right out of you.
Like I'm really excited. So like, when we did Elysian Fields issue 0, we hit our when we hit this one stretch goal, I made everybody's book got a holofoil lava upgrade. And so all of the books came in and it had this beautiful holofoil sheen. And so on the stretch goal, the first cover upgrade stretch goal that we have for this is that I think it's at 4,000. The main cover of the book is going to get a holofoil lava upgrade. And so I'm having proofs of those being done and sent to me here this week, and I'm very excited to see what the new cover, because I was very specific on it being the lava style, because that's what the 0 issue was, and it's going to be like this whole thing where I'm like, I'm going to be a mess again.
It's going to be worth it so much to see that holofoil come out. So for everyone listening, obviously by now you're if you're listening or you're watching, you know why we're here, and that is to talk about Elysian Fields Reborn. For everyone listening, what is the synopsis of this story?
So, Elysian Fields Reborn, at its base, like what it is at its core, and it's probably like most efficient elevator pitch is it's Mortal Kombat with heroes of mythology, right? It's a battle book where you have some of the greatest warriors of myth and legend and history pitted against one another in an arena. So our story starts off, and we're in the 10th year of the siege of Troy, and we see Achilles' final battle. He dies, he goes down to the underworld, and he gets a little bit of a brief respite before he is taken out of that piece and brought to this arena where he is expected to fight alongside Heracles and Hippolyta, if I can talk today.
All right.
In this tournament for the god of the for Hades to try and reestablish his dominance over the underworld. And so they're going up against, Achilles gets to this arena, and Achilles and Heracles and Hippolyta are already mid-fight, and they're fighting Gilgamesh and Enkidu from the Epic of Gilgamesh, right? And so like he cuts in and he's fighting that, and that's what is the core of this first issue of Elysian Fields Reborn. But like as the series goes on, you're going to get to see all sorts of different characters from all these different mythologies fighting one another in the arena, and such an epic format. And this is one of the big things that I brought to this was before I had it as like a standard comic book size, but in my time working, I was like, if I'm going to do a battle book, I should I want to make it a prestige format, because I want the art to be able to breathe on the page and really just feel larger than life. And let me tell you, it does. So yeah, we're going
to be excited for it. And I think you picked, for me, I think the best time to put it out, because there was a manga that recently got animated to Netflix that I was very excited about. It's Record of the Ragnarok. And I was really excited because it's the first thing I got, I think, when I read it, that at least involved some people from history putting them into a battle royale where so for me, I was excited to see this.
Oh, dude, I get why people are excited to see it. So the fights in Record of Ragnarok are freaking insane. When I did Elysian Fields issue 0, it had already, like, the first season had already dropped, and I had people like, "Oh, this really sounds a lot like Record of Ragnarok." Okay, I'll go check it out. And I watched it, and I was like, okay, the fights in here are great, but there is like no freaking substance. This is nothing like Elysian Fields, because like as they said, like this is a battle book, but like I'd like to think that at least during the first part of this interview, I established I'm very much a story guy. And so I have a core narrative. Like at the core of this story, you have Achilles, who is a man that, lived most of his life at war. He gets to experience, or I should say re-experience, peace that he hadn't known since he was a little kid. And he's not sure he wants to do this anymore. But he is also still driven by those very demons that drove him in life: pride, rage. And the question is this tournament, which offers him a challenge unlike anything he faced in life, going to compel those demons to overcome the man of peace he wants to be?
Absolutely.
Like that's at the core of this story. Like it's a thing. Record of Ragnarok is just here's my Thor toy, here's my Lu Bu toy. Smash them together.
Absolutely.
And I'm all down for that. I do plenty of that shit in my book. But there's no the overlying narrative of Record of Ragnarok, I feel, is very thin. At least from what I've seen
For sure.
/ read. Now, I do recommend, if you've seen Record of Ragnarok and you are looking for another anime that is similar, that in my opinion has way more substance, you have not seen any of the Fate series, you have done yourself an incredible disservice, because for some freaking reason, this weird ass niche romantasy battle series has some of the most genuinely authentic portrayals of these characters ever brought to screen. It blows my mind that a weird anime version of Alexander the Great is the most true to character representation we have ever gotten of him in media.
Yes, I would agree. I think the only thing that gives Fate a bad rap is there's so many different versions.
Oh my god! Don't
sometimes
even.
you
Yes, it is so convoluted. It's like, where do I start?
Somewhere.
Like,
somewhere.
So here's the
pick
thing.
one and just follow it.
Just Fate Zero is really good. I think that as someone that's recommended Fate to people, where do I start? I go, well, Fate Zero is considered the prequel series. Fate Stay Night and Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works are kind of retreading territory. I honestly don't like either of them. And everyone looks at me like, you don't like Unlimited Blade Works? I'm like, no, I didn't. Because they hyped up Heracles versus Gilgamesh for 4 episodes and it's ended in 5 freaking seconds. No, I don't like Unlimited Blade Works. They are on my shit list. But so Fate Zero, very good. Fate Apocrypha, I freaking adored. Loved Fate Apocrypha. In fact, Fate Apocrypha had a massive Elysian Fields is always something that I'd kind of toyed with as a concept, but I could never quite I couldn't quite grasp how I wanted to handle it. Watching Fate Apocrypha, I don't know what it was, but just something clicked and I went, I've got it. And I figured everything out. I started, I had all the plot figured out and everything. I freaking loved that series. So much greatness in there. And then there's one that's coming out right now called Fate.
Yes, I know which one you're talking about.
It's called Fate, Fake War or something like that. And they're releasing them one episode every 2 months or something absurd like that. But we've already gotten this epic fight between Gilgamesh and Enkidu, and I'm just like, dude, what the fuck? And UFO Table's doing it. Sorry about all the swearing. I don't know why I'm going there. But I've completely forgot to ask before we went live. It's is this a PG-13 or what's the family rating on this?
Yeah, it's an older. That's an older.
I have definitely skewed you towards the R with the at least 4 F-bombs that I have dropped. But so yeah, absolutely adore the Fate series, and I highly recommend that over Record of Ragnarok. Go watch it. It's silly. It is absolutely niche. It is confusing to know what storyline you're actually following, but oh boy, does it deliver.
Perfect. Everyone listening, you got a great recommendation. Along with, reading Elysian Fields.
Yes. Read my book. It's great. Really cool shit happens. And
you're gonna love it.
I will occasionally make you cry in it. It's just what I do. I am the sad man in comics. I've
pulls
built
on
up a
all the strings.
reputation.
Perfect. Now with this series, and obviously we talk about like the animes that try to take history and turn it into kind of a grandiose story. Was it hard at certain points making a story like this, wanting to kind of be historically accurate? But obviously, this is a tournament in the underworld, so we do have room to be a little
It's like I
a
have
little
room
bit
to
of
play.
a little bit of might and
Um,
magic.
um,
How'd you find the balance between keeping both?
the most important thing for me to do is whenever I'm writing like a specific character is to have my source material out for them for me to pull from. Right. Um Gilga, like I've got I don't really have to do that as much with Achilles because I have read the Iliad over 20 times. It is one of my favorite books of all time. I used to read it every year. I love the Iliad. And I'd like to think that I have a pretty good grasp on who Achilles is, especially within the context of that story and how I want that to reflect in the narrative of Elysian Fields. Heracles, it's a little bit tougher because we have all of the stories of Heracles have been preserved, but it's not like we have what we have with the Iliad or the Odyssey, where you have like Homer has this grand epic
Correct.
tale that has been, you know, upkept and preserved throughout all the years. Heracles' story we know everything of, but it's not preserved in that same like poetic Edda style format. Uh, Hippolyta, I had to do so much research, and I loved it. It was fascinating. She actually became one of my favorite characters. And when we funded, I announced, the first Elysian Fields spinoff that we're doing is a book called Song of Hippolyta. And we got this amazing artist from Instagram, Codicea. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It is just absolutely fantastic. And I shared the test page that she did for us for that book. It's absolutely stunning. And it's in the update on our campaign. But like the reason why I ended up doing that was I initially wrote like this little character profile to kind of pad out the end of the second issue. And my editor read it and was just like, okay, so the second book, very good, very strong. What's going on with this Hippolyta profile thing? Like, is this good or bad? He goes, this needs to be its own book, Michael. This is the best character you've ever written. And it's one of the best scripts you've ever written. She needs to have her own book, Michael. And I went, yes, sir. Okay, I'll figure it out. And so at that
Done
point, I
deal.
started to kind of work at figuring out how I wanted to do that, and that required me to do a deep dive. And if you think fate is convoluted, ancient Greek mythology is way worse.
Very much so. Very much so.
Like it can be pretty easy for certain characters, but Hippolyta is like the support of the support character in most stories that she's in. So it's just like, okay, there are lots of different interpretations of this character, which in one way is fantastic for a writer because it means
Definitely.
that I can effectively create a tapestry of all these of aspects of each of these iterations of her that I find most interesting to create a more concrete version for my story. Like, so that's been really cool. I have a little bit more leeway with her, and as a result, I think she's very fun. I really like writing her. Her book's going to make people cry because that's what I do. But yeah, like I have I have a lot of fun with that. But then, like, writing Gilgamesh and Enkidu, I literally dug out a translation of Epic of Gilgamesh and went and reread it. I reread it twice and was like making notes and everything like that to try and make these guys as authentic as possible. And I'm glad I did, because literally I finished I'd been done with the script for the first one for a while, and I was trying to figure out my angle for the second, and I had been doing like finishing up a reread, and I went to sleep that night, and then sure enough, the HD kicked in around like 3:45 in the morning, 4 a.m. I just started writing. I was like, I've got it. I've got how I'm going to write the second issue.
I figured it out.
And like, it was just this very cool realization about this kind of aspect of his story that's very similar to Achilles's, and how it can use that in portraying their specific fight. And it turned out really well. And so, like, that's really what it comes down to, is when you're striking that balance, you need to make sure that you surround yourself with the material.
Absolutely.
You can't hope to convey these characters if you don't know them. And if you just take the character, take their name, and you're effectively just working off of the brushstrokes of a Wikipedia article, you can't get mad when the people who love these stories get livid with you for not representing them well. Because these stories have existed in our cultural subconscious and have been passed down from generations for a freaking reason. And
Absolutely,
so you owe
for sure.
them a measure of respect. Yes, you can play with them like action figures, and like a 5-year-old plays with toys. Absolutely. But you have a duty as a writer to respect their characterizations, their personalities, their goals, their dreams, everything as it's presented within the context of their own stories, and make sure that those things are being played out in full in your narrative.
Absolutely. Respecting the source material, if you are going to use something that everyone is familiar with, as a writer, you definitely owe the fans to some degree.
Absolutely.
You owe it to them if you're going to do that, for sure. So it's good to hear that. I mean, that someone did do it, because I do feel like we have gotten a lot of Greek and Roman mythologies and gods and whatnot, that some are very, very straight on the path. This was the story, and I'm impressed that they stuck, because sometimes you fall asleep reading their natural born story, and some they just read, hey, he had great strength, and they're like, all right, he was actually the leader of the whole band, and his great strength saved the world. Well, didn't quite go that way, but okay. That's one way to look at it.
I was like, yeah, that's a way to go with that, I think. Yeah.
So it sounds like a lot of people are going to be happy.
Yeah.
One last question before we.
I should say it's been a real blast playing them.
Oh, absolutely. And anyone I think can agree with that. One last question before we wrap up. You've had a lot of, again, we talked before, you've had a lot of experience. You started a long time ago, and you've just been building the repertoire to get to this point. One of the best things I think for indie creators is that first Kickstarter. Everyone knows what a stretch goal is by now. I think we've all been around enough to know what stretch goals mean. And that's a great moment to have stretch goals, because it means you've hit your quota. You're now kind of over what you need. You can now give extras. The problem is, I think for a lot of indie creators, especially on the first book, is, do I do stretch goals? What do I do for stretch goals? I only planned out money and sources for bookmarks. People want pin. But once you start getting used to it and you start meeting people, they're like, oh, I do 3D models, call me up, or I do hand pressed pins. Let me know what you need. Now you're at this point where you have a lot of sources to be like, all right, I can really play with my stretch goals. is there any that you haven't done yet or in the future, depending on how this goes, you're like, you know what? 3D little statues of all the characters or whatnot would be awesome, or like a banner that has like the Achilles symbol on it, that hang from your wall, like a tapestry.
So I'm actually going to like shatter some minds here, and I'm also probably going to get some ire from some of the people. I don't think that stretch goals are as big of a thing as people think. I think that they were very cool when crowdfunding started because it was a way to build up excitement. And I do think that stretch goals are still necessary. I want to make sure that I clarify this. But I think that tchotchkes are fun little extras, but having this be something that you do as your stretch goal, if you're going to them, they need to be you need to be doing incredibly cheap things like stickers and stuff like that.
Right.
But what I think you will find is crowdfunding's been going on for 5-6 years in a heavy fashion at this point. The amount of backers that I know that have long boxes filled with tchotchkes that that they just don't have any use for. If you're going to do stretch goals are great. They're a way for you to hit new milestones on your campaign and they get people excited. But I think that the best way for you to do that is to, rather than invest in extras, invest in increasing the quality of your book. And so what does that mean? That means, let's say you have a script for the next issue. Maybe you add some some extra pages as like a preview for the next book. Or hell, I talked about this a little bit earlier. Every single time we hit a new $1,000 threshold above funding, we're upgrading a cover.
Absolutely.
Right? So at like 4,000, this cover becomes lava holofoil. At 5,000, this becomes silver foil. At 6,000, this becomes rainbow holofoil. I'm still trying to figure out what treatment I want to do for this one because I don't want to just repeat lava holofoil again, even though that would absolutely look freaking vicious on this one.
Absolutely.
But I might just end up doing that anyway because it would look absolutely vicious on this one as well. So you get what I'm saying. So the whole point is that at that point, you are increasing the value of what you are giving to your backers. And what you do is you make sure that these editions, these ones that you're fulfilling for the crowdfunding campaign, are the only ones that you ever print with those finishes. Because now they have a collector's item. And then when you go and you print off your stuff for your conventions and whatever else you're doing, whether it's an online store or what have you, it just goes back to a standard cover format. You save the money there, but you have the book. And that's the most important thing because like this, it's like, I want to say this was like each one of these from the printer I use is called Digital Print Universe. It was like $3 per book for, 8.5 by 11, 56 pages from cover to cover, right? That's nothing.
Absolutely.
So like at that point, you can print as many of those as you need, sell them until you and then as you start to run low, you should have enough saved up to do another print order, to do this, that, the other. But those first people that backed your book, you've given them something special. And that's what it should be about. Doing small tchotchkes, 100%. Like on this campaign specifically, we've got, our first stretch goal, which we're about to hit here in I think it's $90, maybe even less. We're doing a small little sticker of a extra character in this that I have dubbed Hype Guy. He is one of Achilles' myrmidons. He appears in this double page spread that's like Achilles' entrance in the book. And he's just this guy that looks like he's losing his mind with excitement. He's got his fist pumped up in the air. He's a complete dork. And he is like, he's going to end up being a running gag throughout the series, where every book we're going to Where's Waldo him in it at least one page, where you just have Hype Guy cheering in the back. So like, I like it, so like we're gonna have a Hype Guy sticker, and then I think at 4,500, I got this fantastic artist, the Angel Incarnate, who does a beautiful web comic through her Patreon called Hound of Achilles. Freaking fantastic! I got her to do this joke meme bookmark where there is this very famous panel of Batman, or he's like running towards the camera and he's screaming, I am a model of mental health. And so we did that, but it's like, I found out about her because my buddy sent me this. She had done it for her version of Achilles, and I hit her up. I was like, I have a version of Achilles. I need you to do this. And so I commissioned her to do it. It's great. So you get like at 4,500, you get her Achilles bookmark. Everyone gets her Achilles bookmark, like, but then as we move on from that, the next stretch goal that we have past the cover upgrade is, I announced that, at 6,500, we're going to have Codicea do the 12, that finish up that 12 page, that 12 page profile story. And we're going to turn it into an exclusive ash can that'll be limited to just the backers of the campaign, that they can add on to their perk tiers for like an additional $2, maybe max $5. And it'll be signed and numbered.
That's awesome.
And like that's a way where, again, you're adding more value to the actual product, rather than here's a nice thing that you can shove in your long box. And like, don't get me wrong, I still have tchotchkes and stuff like that. I have our big tier that we have is the Coffer of Glory, right? And it's consecutive the Panoply upgrade, where you get a awesome collector's box, and inside it you've got all 4 covers of the book, 3 vinyl standees, a t-shirt, and like that. And then if you got the Panoply upgrade, you also get 4 metal covers, metal cover editions of the book. So it's like, okay, so that's really cool. So this is the thing where, like, if you want all the tchotchkes, cool, I'm gonna have you pay for it, because like ordering those things is expensive. And
absolutely,
especially now that we have X, Y, and Z going on, like, most of those people are in areas where it's going to be even harder to get stuff from now. So it's just, it's one of these things where you're just, you've got to make the right decisions for you. I personally think that stretch goals are great, but we need to be focusing them on the actual product themselves, rather than spending money on extras that we're frankly not planning for. And at the end of the day, would you rather spend an extra $1 or $2 on per item on a bunch of on a whole bunch of standees, or would you rather take that $1 or $2 extra and invest it in improving the quality of the book to make it that much more of a special experience for your backers?
Absolutely. I mean, that makes sense. I would say the biggest that I know of that is Coffin Comics. That I'm a big fan of how they do it, because they do have that option for, you want to get the patches, the prints, the medals. They have that. But I do like, as he gets bigger, he'll say, all right, we're now doing an embossed title. All right, now I'm adding a
Yeah.
green foil to just the title. I do like that. He makes it so that it's gonna all physical backers will get this, but the more I hit my stretch goals, the more your book gets upgraded because I can provide that for you. I definitely would agree that you guys that's the way to go because it is nice getting that book and realizing, I didn't
Yeah,
think I
and
needed a green foil title, but I like the way it
but
looks.
I see it and I'm like, yeah, hell yeah. Like this seems
Absolutely.
obvious now that I have it. And like that's the cool thing
Absolutely.
is that then like you do that for your backers and then you never print like that again. And now they have this special thing as a thank you. Like
Absolutely.
I, it just seems like the best way to really showcase how much what these people do means to us because without them we're not here.
Exactly. For sure. Uh, well, it sounds like it's going to be a great campaign. Everyone needs to go check it out, which brings us to the point of what is our timeline right now for the campaign? Because it is actively going. So, how long do we have to get in on the project, and when will we be expecting the books roughly?
So campaign I put for a 60-day window. We launched on March 28th. I believe Kickstarter says that it closes out March 27th, probably around 9-10 p.m. I might be wrong on that. I'm not looking at it at this very second, so I can't. Like, I'm not going to be able to give you an exact, but I'm fairly certain that that's where it ends at. Now, in terms of production, as you can see, book is done. Like, it's done. Everything done.
Perfect.
So what that means is, June gets here because it's the end of May. It'll probably take about a week or two for the funds to come through because that's just how Kickstarter does. Once I get those funds, I hit up my printer. He starts printing. I go and hit up the box guys. They make the boxes. I hit up the t-shirt people. They make the t-shirts. We get everything to our fulfillment center, which is a Critical Blast fulfillment. Absolutely fantastic service. And then we start fulfilling. The plan is currently to have the books completely fulfilled by the middle of June, beginning of July, latest. Now, if we do end up unlocking that Cadessa stretch goal, that'll probably push things back a little bit, not by a lot. She's pretty damn fast. And if I tell her, it's like, hey, we need to, like, we have this as a stretch goal now. We need to have the 12 pages done. I'd like to have them done by June. I'm sure she'd be able to knock those out. But that also depends on like how things are going. Like if we don't hit those stretch goals till towards the end of that campaign, I obviously don't have the ability to give her that much of a heads up. And so I've got to be kind of respectful to what she's got going on in other clients. But if we also do have that happen, what I'm probably also going to do is I will just ship those books out separately and I'll get the main like people's main books out to them because you never know. That could be a thing where we only get like 10 or 15 people who add on her preview. And you know what? That just makes that preview that much more valuable because I'm going to have her and I sign them. Because she's a domestic she's a domestic US based artist. So I'm going to be like, all right, cool. I'm going to have the printer send them to her first. Then she'll send them. I'll pay for the postage for it to come back to me. I'll sign it, send it over to Critical Blast, and we'll ship it. Or hell, I could even just ship it. It doesn't matter. But like, the fact of the matter is that this is just more ways for me to make sure that I give value to my customers and do it in a timely fashion.
Awesome. Well, sounds like it'll be coming out really quickly, which is always great to see on the Kickstarter that the books are done because there's nothing worse than ending a Kickstarter funded and they just started announcing, all right, page 2 of 20 is now done for preview. I think I'm up to three projects I have right now that I've been waiting 2.5 years on. I think at some point they'll come.
I have at least 10 projects that I have backed that I backed back in 2020 that I still don't have. It's absurd to me. Like I said again, I have written 9 books that have come out in the past 5 years. Of those 9 books, 7 of them I produced. So the very notion that you can make as much money as some of these guys have made and not have a book out within a year is mind-blowing.
It's a little crazy. Yeah.
Oh,
Definitely agree on to think that it's just it doesn't happen. But I mean, again, I do to some degree I will always give an indie creator the patience because I do understand it's not.
Like there's definitely
it's not
some
easy.
leeway that's given.
But there gets to a
Like,
time where when you haven't given me any messages, all right.
Yeah, like well, and it's also like how frequently are they doing campaign updates? Are they letting us know, what's going on? I'm a pretty reasonable guy. Like if you've got stuff going on, you've got stuff going on.
But if you start running another campaign and you haven't fulfilled the first campaign, all right, let's pump the brakes and focus on this one.
Let's pump the brakes a bit, please.
Exactly. Well, we were happy to have you on the show. I can't wait to read this book. Sounds fantastic. For everyone listening that wants to stay up to date on what we have with Elysian Fields, what you're working on, where is the best place to follow you?
So best places to follow me right now are 9 Realms Publishing on Facebook and 9RP Comics on Instagram. I am also on Twitter, but most of what I do there is complain about things like, the current state of Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey because it looks terrible. So if you want to hear me rant about historical shenanigans, like Twitter is a great place to look at for me because I'll very frequently complain about it. I do occasionally YouTube stream as well. Also 9 Realms Publishing on there. I haven't done it in a little bit, but I've been meaning to get back to it. But yeah, those are the best places. And then obviously back Elysian Fields Reborn on Kickstarter. We're obviously going to be keeping you guys up to date on things there. We've already made our first campaign update to let people know about some pretty swanky things that are going on. And hopefully we'll see you on that backer list.
Absolutely. And for those of you that are listening on Spotify, or if you see this post on Instagram, we will have the link to the Kickstarter in the comments. So just go ahead, follow it, click on it, subscribe. If you love history and battles, I've seen a few concept pages, some art with this. You won't be disappointed. Achilles always for the win. Can't wait to see this come out. Thank you for coming on. We hope to have you back once we start getting some more sequels out.
Absolutely. I will be back.
Perfect. Well, we look forward to having you. For everyone listening, we hope you enjoyed this episode of Beyond the Cape. This is brought to you exclusively on the Uncensored Nerds Network on Spotify, where you will find our podcast, We Got Issues, the Comic-Con podcast, Plot Hole Productions, and more. Go follow Uncensored Nerds. We have a huge giveaway in the works right now. Go check it out. Go to the website, sign up for the newsletter. Enjoy. Most of all, check out 9 Realms Publishing. Check out the Kickstarter. Give it a go. Subscribe. Michael, we look forward to having you back. Everyone listening, we hope you had fun. Have a good night.